to approach this connection that you and I have built as our next interview, as opening doors for us, there is so much excitement in thinking that way on who else is going to want to connect with you when they hear about this, me. And what I always say at HeyMama and in general is you ignite the spark. You and I ignited the spark at that event. It's just a quick spark of magic.
Yep.
And now we're putting that spark to work. We're building on it.
Welcome to the House of JerMar Podcast, where wellness starts within. The House of JerMar is a lifestyle brand empowering women to live all in through interior design and personal wellness. We are a destination for women ready to reimagine what is possible in their homes and lives and then create it. We are honored to have you join us on our mission to empower 1 million women to live all in. I am your host, Jean Collins, and I invite you to become inspired by this week's guest. Welcome to the House of JerMar Podcast, where wellness starts within. I'm your host, Jean Collins, and I'm so excited to have you join us today. Today, we have a really inspiring, sexy mama on our show. Penny Goffman is our guest. She is an entrepreneur. She's a stylist. She's a writer. She's a mama. She's a connector. And she is head of community at HeyMama. And I am so excited to have her on to talk about herself, her journey, her personal wellness. She is in phenomenal shape, folks. And also her journey in helping moms balance everything through her role at HeyMama. So Penny, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel like we recently connected and met. I totally jumped on board for all of this. So I'm just so happy to be here.
Well, thank you for joining. And just so everyone knows, we did meet at a HeyMama event. And you were the moderator and had 4 incredible speakers talking about being entrepreneurs and life-work balance. And one of them was like, I have to be honest, I don't have life-work balance. And I just loved that. And you were such a great moderator and just asked some really good, insightful questions. I immediately went up to you at the end and was like, hey, can we talk? And then I, of course, joined HeyMama and became a new member, because what you're doing as an organization to help support entrepreneurs and working moms to figure out how to do it all, I think is so inspiring. So thank you for offering to be a guest. I appreciate it. So let's talk a little bit about you. I would love to share with the audience at a high level, however much you want to share, a little bit about your background, because I did mention you're a writer, you're a stylist, you're a mama, you're a connector. So just to give everyone a little bit of insight into you, give us a little bit of your background.
Okay, absolutely. I've done so many different across different industries, which has been really interesting for me, and definitely we'll get to kind of like the why on that for sure. But just so everyone knows, I'm Canadian, born and raised from Montreal, and did that whole, move to New York City after college thing. And my first industry that I entered into right after college was finance. So very much had a numbers background. I had labeled myself kind of as a numbers person. I had been good in math, and that was kind of like the bucket I put myself in. And it was an incredible experience. Just like gives you the whole business background, really helps you understand numbers, which later in my entrepreneurial journey was super helpful, of course. But after several years of that, and on the verge of getting married, and we were moving out to Connecticut, which is where I live now, I really changed gears and I actually went into education for 3 years. Total 180. Zero. There was from point A to point B, finance, education, nothing to do with each other. Decided to go to NYU, got a master's in education, total 180. And we will talk about here how that's so a part of my personality. So did that.
Yes.
And then gave birth and basically decided to basically take a maternity leave with no constraints on myself. And what kind of naturally happened at that time was friends in the area and community asked me to just do some styling for them. So I picked up kind of work here and there. And that led to, that really, really opened the doors for me. And I had so organically had not planned on at all. It opened the doors for me in so many ways. I ended up launching my own fashion brand called Jolie Goutique after my daughter, which I sold December 2020, owned it for 5 years. I had also built it to also sell one day. So that was kind of cool. And that's something that entrepreneurs should think about. But it also opened the door. I ended up taking on mega projects, styling projects for Bloomingdale's, several locations, Lord & Taylor. I styled 200-person fashion shows, helped produce them, emceed some of them, and then worked with other smaller luxury brands as well. So it was all just kind of really fell into my plate. Then after that, simultaneously, I became a member of HeyMama, and they hired me to be a contractor and do side work for them while I was doing all of this other stuff as well. And then when I sold my business, joined on full-time HQ at HeyMama. So that's kind of like the background. I have 2 kids. They're 12 and 15 years old. I've been married for 18 years. We just celebrated our 18-year wedding anniversary. We've been together monogamously for 22 years. And I live in Greenwich, Connecticut. So that's kind of the background.
Okay. So you made a comment about your personality when you switched from finance to education, which is a huge 180. And that sounds to me like something that's terrifying to do. How did you make that decision? And how did you decide I'm just doing a drastic change? And education to stylist and fashion and entrepreneur is also another 180 in a totally different direction.
Yeah. So you learn a lot about yourself, obviously, through life, the older you get. I'm going to verbalize things now that I wouldn't have put words to back then, that I wasn't conscious of. It's just how I was, but I really had no understanding that's who I was. But I have a saying now, that a quote by me that I sometimes post on Instagram and I pretty much live by, but it's only because I came to learn like, oh, this is really, why be one way when you can be all the ways? That is something that I grew to understand about myself. I have never put myself into a box. It never occurred to me to put myself into the box. Even my husband way back actually made a comment to me, probably on the more negative side at the time. Now he thinks it's phenomenal about me, but he didn't understand this risk taker side of me, nor did I understand it at all myself. But he was like, you're switching around a lot. You move around a lot. You get tired of something. You move around a lot. And he, at the time, I don't think was saying it so positively to me. And I was just like, well, why not? What's stopping me? I didn't understand when I was younger why that would be an issue. Yikes. Or if nothing stopped me, why wouldn't I move around? If these opportunities are presenting themselves, why wouldn't I take them? Why wouldn't I try this? So that is something now that I would say, why be one way when you can be all the ways? I am definitely an all the ways person. And part of that is obviously a risk-taking nature. And I don't mean risk like jumping off a cliff, because I don't know that I would do that. Or bungee jumping. It's not visible, right? But just the idea of being kind of unstoppable, idea that nothing is too far in your reach, or this idea of, I don't like the term fake it till you make it. I would like to alter that in a little bit of ways, but there is kind of that a notion of, if you go into something believing you can just do it, or convincing yourself that you can just do it, then you do just do it, because you got to follow through. So like, you're in it. So there's no turning right. You're just in it. And obviously not every personality is like that, but it is sort of something that I do speak to a lot of entrepreneurs about when they talk about imposter syndrome. I'm just like, if you just pretend to yourself, or at least speak it to yourself, that you belong here, and you kind of convince yourself of that, at least temporarily in that moment, it's amazing how you will step into that position. You'll step right in, because you're left with no choice. So that's just kind of how I've always been. And the jumping around has served me so well, because each door opened a new door.
So therefore, for people where that's happened, you end up having more self-confidence, because you can reflect back on what happened and say, wow, look where that took me. I shouldn't be afraid. You never know, right? Just trust it and go with it.
Yes, you never know. Exactly. Right. And it's almost like, my husband said this to me and stuck with me for years. Every kind of new experience is basically like an interview. And I do think any women listening, entrepreneurs especially, that's a really powerful statement if you take it really in, because you approach new experiences almost like that they can open doors to somewhere else, and you don't even know what those doors are. You have no idea. But if you approach those experiences almost like you were in a quote unquote interview, or this idea that every connection can lead to another connection, and you have the excitement that can build, you have no idea now what's going to happen in a year based on this new experience, but you approach it and you put your best self forward and you kind of put that confidence or fake confidence, whatever it is, in front of it, it's amazing.
So much of it, I talk a lot about mindset, and I talk about mindset in my book, and I talk about mindset with my guests. And so much of it, I call it the bird who sits here and talks negatively to us all day. And we are our worst enemies when it comes to being fearful and the imposter syndrome. And if we can learn to, like you said, just fake it, quiet that bird, and act as if you are, and go out there and say, I am a writer. I am an entrepreneur. I am a stylist. I am these things. To your point, you truly get to become those things. And you know these people, you see these women through HeyMama that are doing these amazing things. So you see it in person, which is so inspiring.
Absolutely.
I love it. Were your parents like that?
My mom grew up at a different time. She was kind of, the time was an older mom. I feel like nowadays she wouldn't be considered an older mom, but I was like the product of a second marriage. And so at the time, she was an older mom. She had never gone to college, and she went back to college to get her undergraduate degree when I was in elementary school. That was definitely something that had such a great just impression on me growing up, just that she did that. And she went to college with 20-something-year-old. And she was obviously, double their age at the time. I do think there was this feeling growing up of that I could do anything. So I don't know that my parents were like that, or that they felt they had the opportunities to be like that. I think there was fire inside them, but I don't think ever were able to figure out how to light that fire quite in that way. But they certainly did pass on to me always that I could do anything. And that definitely stuck with me.
How do you try to instill in your children that belief that they can do anything, be anything, take risks, like the world is their oyster? How do you instill that and down a generation?
So something that we always talk about at my house, I live by and constantly talking about, I just had this conversation with my daughter before she left to sleepaway camp, is the absolute worst case scenario in these kinds of interactions or these interviews or these applications or these friendships, all of the things, or these sports tryouts, the absolute worst possible outcome is a no. That is the worst possible outcome. That's it.
Right.
There's nothing worse that's going to come from it. The worst is you get a no. You don't make it. You don't get the interview. The person doesn't make plans with you. You get a no. And once you can overcome the fact that getting a no is actually really not so bad, you'll bounce right back. And by the way, sometimes no's aren't even because there's something wrong. It's just, it's not working out at that time.
Right.
Like sometimes a no actually has no even value behind it other than at that moment, it's a no. Once you can get past that the worst possible outcome is a no, you learn to feel more fearless.
Right.
You learn to feel more fearless because you understand the depth that the most negative outcome is really not that bad. So of course, but the most positive outcome is so better and is so important and could be life altering, could be life changing, could open up a million doors for you. So you understand when you're looking at the risk and, the benefits, that one so outweighs the other.
Right.
It just makes sense to jump in. It makes sense to ask the question. It makes sense to put yourself out there. It makes sense to go for the interview. It makes sense to go for the tryout because the upside is so much more important and better than the downside.
I love that. That is such a good thing to teach them so young. It really is, because life is about no's. It really is.
Yeah. And as adults, as women, as entrepreneurs, that is something that it's clearly not just for children. So many entrepreneurs that I speak to, moms that I speak to regularly, they're worried about that downside. They're worried about the no. They feel imposter syndrome. They're worried about asking for the interview. They're worried about raising their hand to be a speaker somewhere. And you have to learn to face the no, or learn to become fearless about the no. Because the upside is so much better. So it's really just a total life lesson.
Right. You said something that's so important there in the very beginning of that, which is you don't know why the no is a no. And I think that's another really important thing, is to teach yourself not to internalize the no as if you've done something wrong and there's something wrong with me, because you don't know why you got the no most of the time. Sometimes they tell you why, but most of the time you don't know. And to your point, it could be timing. It could be contextually, it just doesn't work. It could be they don't have any opportunities for you, but it doesn't mean that you and your value as a person, as an entrepreneur, as whatever it is, as an athlete, a speaker, as an author, it doesn't mean that your value in that role and in that job is not valuable.
100%. This whole notion is really something that we kind of have to teach ourselves. I do think it's like a learned behavior. I think facing that worst outcome, facing that no, and getting over the fear of it, teaching yourself to slowly get over the fear of it, is something that takes practice, actually.
Right. Yes. Well, and clearly you've done it, since you've made so many massive leaps and changes. I think those are terrifying.
I guess so. Yes. You just keep going through those motions.
Yeah. So is your husband the same way? We don't need to talk about him too much, but I'm just curious. Is this like the total vibe in the whole house here?
No, we're different. We're different. I am definitely more of the risk taker. I make more rash decisions. I am not really an overthinker. I kind of just decide and go.
I love it.
And we laugh about it a lot at home, because when I ask him a question, and I think just yesterday, we're going to Italy soon, and I planned the whole trip by myself. I love this stuff. But I have one question for you. It's about renting a car. I explain the whole scenario to him. And without a doubt, his answer is always the same to me. Let me think on it. No matter what I ask him, I could ask anything. I could ask him about job, professional. No matter what I ask him, his response to me is always, let me think on it. And he knows that to me is almost like telling me to calm down. Right. Okay. Because I want
a decision.
The answer. Yes. I want the instant decision, right. And it kills me. We both know that about each other. He knows I want the instant decision. I know he wants to think on it. So no, we are different. We're different in that way. Yeah.
That's so funny. I'd be like, okay, 2 minutes passed. Have we thought about it? Like, time's up.
Right. I'm like, well, can you give me initial thoughts here? Like, what are some initial thoughts? I'm like trying to pull it out. You have some initial thoughts, like you could think on it more, but like, are you veering one way versus the other? Like, oh yeah, I'm like in there.
I would too. I wouldn't let it go. I'd be like, okay, so we have to make a decision tonight by 7:00. Like, and it's 6:30. So what are we doing? I need to move forward. I need to check this off my list. I got to keep going.
Yeah.
Got to keep going.
Yeah. Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah. So we're different.
That is so funny. So talk to me about being a connector at HeyMama. And just HeyMama in general. I would love you to kind of educate everyone on HeyMama, and then also what your role is like in HeyMama and how that's sort of evolving, because I feel like your role is growing.
Absolutely. So, one interesting thread through all of the various professions that I've been in, industries, without me even knowing it, has been being a connector. And I think that was just part of kind of like my innate personality. I started to see a pattern where I was always very forward facing. No matter what I was doing, even when I was in finance, it would put me in a boardroom in front of people. So I was very forward facing always. And I think being a connector in part has that role to it. So it was just a very organic progression, kind of. That is a common thread throughout my career. But basically, as head of community, so let me just back up for a moment. So HeyMama is a private membership community, and our true mission is to accelerate moms in business. And we want to accelerate moms in business by providing them with opportunities. And what are these opportunities? They're networking opportunities. They're helping moms, working moms throughout the entire country and frankly, globally, but mostly in the US, build valuable, meaningful relationships that can lead to collaborations, that can lead to co-hosting events together, that can lead to swapping, being on each other's podcasts, that can lead to PR, lead to features, lead to media quotes, lead to just sometimes building a friendship with someone. They can lead to other things like mommy playdates, but we really focus on the business aspect of it and providing the visibility, the features, and all the leadership opportunities basically at our members' fingertips. And that's sort of the basis of how we fulfill the mission of accelerating moms in business. as head of community, my role is really just, it is to connect. I do focus on engagement, on growth of the community on both ends. But the idea here is like that moms are part of the community and they want to know who can they go to for accounting help? Who is the person who they can go to for design help? Where are the resources that they can access? And through both in-person and digital experiences, I'm able to basically connect dots for the members of the community in all the different facets and all the different ways. So that's kind of like in a nutshell, from kind of like an official standpoint,
Yeah.
what I do.
Which I love. I love because I think being an entrepreneur and even being a high level female executive, it is lonely. It's lonely. It really is.
Yes.
And the few different groups that I've belonged to or when I've joined coaching sessions, one of the reasons why I do it is the ability to connect with other like-minded women. And they don't always have to be in the same profession. Sometimes they are, but the ability to connect with other like-minded women who can relate to the challenges that I might be having at that point in time. And it can be as simple as I need a new CPA. I can't stand my CPA. Or it can be, I need a new graphic designer. I need a new logo, or I just want someone to talk to about the stress of feeling like you're juggling all these balls and you feel like you're just drowning in life as an entrepreneur. And sometimes we just need a coffee or a wine or a drink with another entrepreneur who can relate to that to just make us feel like we're not alone.
100%. I think that has a lot to do with it. And there are other communities out there. The interesting thing about HeyMama is that whole motherhood aspect on top of it, right? So you're an entrepreneur, you're a founder, but then you also have children. And that can look very different, right? And balancing that kind of schedule or creating that kind of schedule can look very different when children are involved. And also, mom guilt can be a real thing that is sometimes spoken about, and how to also build relationships with those experiencing that realm, the motherhood and also entrepreneurship intersection, I think is also really important. So I feel like basically, moms, entrepreneurs in whatever local community that they're in, it's so valuable to be able to hear from each other. And sometimes you don't even know where that connection is going to lead. Again, it's kind of like approaching everything like an interview, right? You don't know where that's going to lead. When I met you, I didn't know I was going to be on your podcast, and then I'll be able to share about this podcast. And you don't know where that's going to lead once I share about this podcast. And who else hears this podcast and then pings one of us on something else? You never know. So you and I met, it was an event. There were lots of people. There's a perfect example, right? So I get to meet everyone, but I'm not deeply connecting in that type of event. But we spoke, said we were going to do this, we followed up. And you and I, both of us, we don't know where this connection is going to go. And that's what I was talking about before. The excitement, two moms, entrepreneurial moms connecting, actually coming together to do something. And we have no idea at this very moment what's going to happen after this. If you approach this connection that you and I have built as our next interview, as opening doors for us, there is so much excitement in thinking that way on who else is going to want to connect with you when they hear about this, meet. And what I always say at HeyMama and in general is you ignite the spark. You and I ignited the spark at that event. It's just a quick spark of magic.
Yep.
And now we're putting that spark to work. We're building on it. We're building the fire. And we have no idea where the fireworks are going to go after here. That's the excitement for me in being a connector. That every time I connect 2, 3, 4, obviously infinite amount of women together, I create that spark for them. And I have no idea where it's going to go. And that's so exciting for me because I know proof, like literally, I know what happens sometimes after these connections. And it's magical.
The thing I love about you, like you can feel your energy and your enthusiasm in how you speak. I can feel how excited and passionate you are about it, which is something that I love. And I love that we can share that with a broader audience because I think there are so many women that feel a little stuck in life and they don't feel like they have a fire or a passion to what's going on. And I think it's really inspiring for women to see someone like you who has this fire and passion and true belief of what you're doing and the power in what you're doing. And I think it's amazing. Your energy comes through the screen. It's amazing. So thank you for that. Thank you for that.
I love that. I love that.
So,
And I just want to add one more
yeah.
thing. You know, we speak a lot of HeyMama, and I speak too. So we have a campaign every year called Motherhood on the Resume. But the bottom line is, HeyMama aside, also something that really speaks to me personally and professionally is moms who might have been stay-at-home for forever. And that is an unbelievable job. And as we all know, whether you're working or not, being a mom, it can be extremely challenging. But I do know a lot of moms who want to do something, who want to ignite fire in them a little bit more, who want to find something that's more of their passion project, or they want to leap into something. And that's very scary when you have been a stay-at-home mom for a decade. Very scary. And I can try to put myself in those shoes and understand how daunting that is. So I think that's also another big mission of mine personally and also professionally at HeyMama, providing the resources and connections that may align to tell moms that, by the way, you can jump back.
Right.
You can. You do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. One of my favorite books that I talked about in one of my beginning podcasts. So I always try to ask my guests if they can recommend a book for our readers that have helped them. And one of my favorite books is called Comeback Careers. And it's all about inspiring women in your 30s, 40s, and 50s to either come back into the workforce or make a major career shift. And for me personally, that changed my life, realizing that at 50 years old, I could make a career shift. And it really was because the book is filled with so many inspiring stories of, very focused on what you said, of women who had stayed at home or been out of the workforce for a long time, and yet you still have so many skills. And how do you transfer those skills and find your passions? And that book totally changed my life just because it shared with me stories of people who had done it. And so if you're doing that at HeyMama, it's like not only stories, like you're giving real life people to talk to, which is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. So let's shift gears for 1 second. Let's talk about personal wellness, because I mentioned in the beginning that anyone who follows you on Instagram, and everyone should, that Penny Life, you are in phenomenal, folks, physical shape. And normally that means you're also in phenomenal mental shape. I have found from people that take care of their bodies really well, they also take care of their mind a lot. So I would love if you could share with everyone a little bit. What do you do? What's your routine? Have you always been like this? Because you and I were talking, it doesn't come without work. So I would love to know, what is your personal wellness routine and what do you do? Because you too have a job, you are an executive, and you're a mama. And like, how do you find the time? Because that's the thing people always say to me, like, I just don't have the time. I don't have the time to exercise. I don't have the time to eat well. I don't have the time to cook. But clearly you do in your life. So how do you do that to help people get some tips about how to find that balance?
Absolutely. So I'm going to say something that's totally real that may sound harsh to people listening, but this is how I feel. And so I share it. I don't believe in the notion. In most cases, there are absolutely exceptions to this, but in most cases, I don't believe in the notion of I don't have time. And so I think when you take that out of the equation, the I don't have time, and you basically say that that's, artificial, and that statement is false, you then open up the floodgates to carve out that time. And carving out time can be for everything in your life. And look, I'm a super organized person. So obviously that helps my cause. I'm very calendar driven. I'm extremely organized. That really helps me carve out time. If someone, I get it, we're all different. So if executive functioning is not their strong suit and that's a challenge for them, then I get it. Carving out time is going to feel harder because in general, they're not feeling like they know how to organize their schedule. But for me, it's a little bit of BS. I don't have time because we all have time for what we prioritize. And by the way, my priorities may not all be okay for someone else. Things that I prioritize, because I will prioritize my workouts for sure ahead of driving my child somewhere. And my children know that.
Right.
Absolutely know that. There are obviously cases. Someone has a hockey game and, I'm not saying we don't juggle. We do. But since my kids have been born, they have known it has been a top priority for me to care for myself. And therefore, at this point, at this age, they don't even question it. They know this is part of my life, my daily routine. It's not even like up in the air anymore. So obviously, that is a priority for me. And therefore, I make sure the time is there. Whereas someone else might think, okay, I'm a really bad mom because their priority is making sure that every one of their children's needs are met. And that by saying no to driving someone somewhere that I don't deem as important at that moment, where I'm telling them I can take you an hour later, they might think that's horrible of me. And that I'm totally okay with that too. But we all have our priorities is the point. And so my wellness is absolutely so much at the top of the list, bottom line, because also controversial, I am at the top of my list. And that is obviously very controversial. I've always been at the top of my list. That's who I am. I don't know if I would have verbalized it as such in my 20s, but thinking back, I was always at the top of my list. My husband thinks it's because I grew up, even though I do have a half sister and brother, he thinks that I grew up as an only child. And so he thinks that I have only child syndrome and I put myself first. But I do. I put myself first. And that's kind of how it works around here.
Which I cannot tell you, I am so happy that you verbalized that and that you talked about that, because I talk about that all the time. That if you want inner wellness and you want to take care of yourself, you have to make yourself a priority. You have to. And it's not narcissistic to make yourself a priority. It's not. And I think, unfortunately, especially as women and moms, we're raised to think you need to do it all. You need to be the best mom possible. You need to be the best employee or boss possible. And then you personally, you fall farther down on the list. And I just think it is so important. It took me till I was in my 50s to realize if you don't make yourself a priority, nobody else is. And there's nothing wrong, because if you take care of you, then there's more of you to then take care of other people. And you're teaching your children as well that it is important to make themselves a priority, and especially for girls, to stand up for yourself, to stand up for the things that you want. You are valuable, you are important, and your time and how you take care of yourself matters. I love it.
My daughter knows. She knows. And talking about books, Glennon Doyle, I am blanking on the name. I was like about to look it up on Instagram, but this had a huge impression on me. But Glennon Doyle's book that I've read like more than once, actually. Forget the title at the moment.
I'll find it.
She says in her book, I highlighted it over and over. I posted about it. I've read it to my daughter before. I've sent it to my husband. And you have to look at the direct quote, but she talks about, and this is like, so much for me. If you show your daughter and you raise her and she sees you being and she uses this word, martyr. I love that word.
Yeah.
You raise her and she sees you being the martyr all the time. You're the martyr. Oh, be me. Oh, I'm slaving. Oh, only your mom does this. And that's what she sees over and over and over. Her mother in the martyr role, you are going to raise. That's all she knows. All she knows is that that's the role that she needs to take on. That's what motherhood is. I speak about the word martyr a lot at home. I literally say the words to my family. Don't be the martyr. Stop being the martyr.
Right.
You want to do it? Go do it. Don't then come back and complain about it.
Right.
You decided, made that decision. You put yourself out there. Go do it. Don't be the martyr after about it. And if you don't want to do it, if this is pushing you beyond your limit, if this is not a priority to you, if it's not taking care of yourself, then just simply say no.
It's so powerful. That is so powerful to teach them that at such a young age, because it is. And it's also a mindset thing, because you talk about the complaining and everything else that goes, and martyrs are very much a victim mentality and a woe is me mentality. And I'm sure this book is about this. Like over time, that becomes the natural way that you act and the way that you think. And then you don't even realize how that's hindering you from all the success and everything that's possible in life.
100%. Don't get me wrong. There are times where it's the time I'm washing dishes that day by the kitchen. And I'm thinking, I'm like, no one is allowed to eat. The kitchen is no more dishes. Don't get me wrong. And by the way, I'm too type A. I'm not leaving the dishes. It's got to be clean before I go to bed. And everyone knows that. So they're like, she's going to do it please, because she can handle it. She can. And they're right. I can't handle it. So it's not like I never fall into that trap. I do. Okay. But in general, that is something we very openly speak about. And there are times where my kids could resent me for it. And by the way, they're 12 and 15. So they will tell you. They will put your biggest flaws. They'll be like, well, daddy will take us if we ask him. Okay, well then go ask him. He's an adult. If he wants to say, I can take you in 45 minutes. It's not like I don't fall into the trap. And it's not like my kids don't resent me at times for it. But it's nothing to me that is someone's unwell and I should get them to a doctor. We're not talking about those scenarios, right? Like, not what we're referring to here. So, yeah, it's kind of just the way it goes here.
I love it. But you're also teaching your kids, they are a generation of immediate gratification. And we all are, actually. We all want everything now. And you and I talked about with your husband, you want him to make a decision now. And we all do, actually. But you're teaching your kids how to prioritize the things that matter. And is that really important? And do I really need to do that right this moment? Yeah, because learning those skills is also really important when it comes to time management. As you get older and you're trying to make yourself a priority, being able to really balance. And I find so you asked this question during the event that I went to, life-work balance. And you might have even phrased it work-life balance. And when I turned 50, I turned it around. And I always call it life comes before work. And I know you have that mentality too. It's always life comes first. And I think we all struggle with that. And so teaching our children at a very young age, some of these skill sets allows them to put life first.
Yeah, 100%.
And you're living proof of it. So you don't know that I'm going to ask this question, but let's talk about food. What do you do about food? How do you eat? Because you don't maintain a body like yours without eating.
I mean, no one should ever lie about that. Yes. Personally, look, this is different for everyone, but personally, my workouts are, I'm going to be 45 in August. I mean, I've been working out for decades, but I'm going to be 45 in August. My workouts are really important to me in that I want to build strength and I want to tone and I want to be healthy and strong, and they're so good for so many reasons, right? Mental, physical, etc., straying off illnesses, all that. But ultimately, food to me is almost, or my food choices are almost even more priority in terms of being aware and conscious of, because you can work out all you want if you are not consuming highly nutritious foods that are good for your body and fueling your body in that way, workouts really aren't going to do very much. You're still going to feel shitty.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? You're not going to feel confident in your bathing suit. So the food element to me is so important. I feel sometimes overlooked. I feel sometimes people go to the gym or they work out, they move their body, which is amazing, but they're not focusing on the other component. I don't live by any rule. Some people have an 80-20 rule. I don't live by any rule. I have certain things. Anyone who knows me or has gone out with me, and I mean anyone, will tell you, if you take me to a restaurant, there are two things I will always order, no matter what: a dirty martini and French fries.
I was just going to say, please say French fries, because I order French fries at any restaurant.
Any restaurant, I have a dirty martini and French fries. My kids know it. When we go to celebrate my husband's birthday, that is what I order. And then usually fish and vegetables with it. I'm going out tonight. I'm dreaming about it already. Although the place we're going to doesn't have French fries, it's more Asian. But that's it for me. So I don't live by any rule, but those are things that I genuinely enjoy. But in terms of food, I don't live by a rule. But yes, I'm really, especially in my 40s right now, I am perimenopausal. I'm very focused on what it means to be perimenopausal. It is inevitable. Menopause is inevitable. It's going to happen to all women. Think we need to be very prepared for it. I am very interested and passionate about health and wellness. I'm not even in the industry. Oh my gosh, I am already asking my OBGYN and I'm reading about HRT, and I bought myself a 10-pound weighted vest that when I walk my dog, I walk in my weighted vest because I'm already going for a walk. So why not build strength? So I'm just in it to win it. That's who I am. Right. But so on that note, I consume a lot of fish. That's my preference, fish and seafood, but I actually eat everything. I do eat red meat. You want to put a great filet mignon in front of me? I might not eat the whole thing, but I'm going to have some of it. So there is no food group. This is just for me. There is no food group that I would say to you, I don't eat. I actually eat everything, literally everything. Do I have a lot of gluten? No, I absolutely do not have a lot. Do I have a lot of dairy? No, I put almond milk in my coffee. I do not have a lot. But we're going to Naples. We'll be in Italy this summer. I'm going to have pizza. Best pizza in the world, I've heard. I'm going to have a slice of pizza. I'm going to have that dairy. And I don't know, maybe the dough has gluten. I have no idea. But like nothing I don't eat. I am not free of any particular food, but I certainly eat what suits me best. And it's so basic. That's like the crazy thing. I know I hate to say this. People are going to get mad at me. I don't fully understand, I guess, the flip side. To me, you could choose not to eat. Well, that's a choice. Fine. But to me, we all know the basics. This goes back to the black and white thing. We all know that vegetables are good for you.
Right.
We all know that fruit is good for you, right? We all know those things at like just the very basic. You know that if you're having a nutritious crudité plate and maybe you dip it in some yummy hummus, that you're probably eating well without having to go to the nutritionist. So there's part of me that just doesn't fully, I guess, sympathize or understand. You can tell what kind of mom I am. I'm like, I don't sympathize with you. So I'm really hurt. I'm just like, I understand that we need that. Absolutely. There's a lot of question marks, 100% on elements of food. But there are some basics that we just know are going to go well. So I really stick to those basics as the bottom line.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, you just eat real food. You eat real food. And it's like you had Kat Can Cook on your panel, and she has this amazing book, Big Bites, which is so phenomenal and a great following on Instagram, and I just love her. And she posts all the time about what she ate in a day, and she doesn't drink, but I wouldn't give that up yet. But anyway, but her whole focus is I just eat real food. It's not like I don't have dessert. I just eat real food that you make, real food, not a lot of ingredients, knowing when you go to the store, read the package, recognize the ingredients in it. It's not that hard. And I think teaching our children a generation down not to eat these processed foods, not to eat out so much. Things when you eat out have a lot of salt, and trying to recognize the things that are good for you versus not so good for you because they're processed, and inflammation oils. I think it's such a powerful gift we can give to our children to lead by example by eating that way.
100%. Absolutely.
And we have to live life. Like to your point, you're going to Italy. You have to live. I think when people think of dieting and it's like all about like elimination and depriving yourself. And so it's a mindset, and your mindset is like, no. And I have the same mindset for myself. The food is the fuel for my body for me to look and feel my best. And that is important as opposed to depriving yourself of something. It's about giving value to what you put in you and making sure that is as good as it possibly can be. Because why shouldn't it be?
Yes. Absolutely, 100%. And I have a life motto, which I talk about a lot at home as well, everything in moderation. That's how I live actually every part of my life, everything in moderation.
I love it. All right, so before we go, because we're running out of time and I don't want to make you late because you are a busy mama, where can people find you? I'll put it all in the show notes too, and I'll put the book that you talked about in the show notes. I'll find it and I'll link it. So where can people find you?
The best place to find me is on Instagram. I'm really on top of my DMs, and I do really respond pretty quickly there. So that Penny Life with an underscore after, but type in that Penny Life, you'll find it. That is the best place. Sometimes people DM me on LinkedIn and find me on LinkedIn. I'm really slow on LinkedIn. I do not check my LinkedIn regularly. So you can go check it out, but it's probably not even updated, which is bad. But that Penny Life is where it's the most real time. I'm up to date on my DMs. I get back to people. I love connecting on Instagram. I love it. I love seeing people's stories. I love the real life aspect of it, the real life aspect. We all share what we want. That's my favorite. And then, of course, you can email me, penny@heymama.co, not com.co. And if anyone has questions about Hey Mama, definitely shoot me an email. And I'd love to connect with anyone listening.
Agreed. And I will link Hey Mama down there. And I am excited to talk about Hey Mama in the future because I just joined. And so I'm excited to become a part of that community and be able to share all of the good things that you guys are doing with that community as I'm participating and learning and growing and connecting with new people. So thank you. So before we go, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want to make sure we get in or we share with the audience? I just want to make sure I've captured everything of importance and I don't want to leave anything out.
Okay, we have 1 minute left, so I'll make this super quick, which is it's like crazy, but I'm a huge believer in sexy.
Yes,
So,
we didn't talk about that. Oh my goodness. Yes, let's talk about that.
I would just say for all of the women listening, especially the moms, I think my biggest piece of advice is get your sexy back. Why get your sexy back? Because when you feel sexy, whatever that means to you, and by the way, sexy doesn't mean showing your cleavage. I mean, it can, but it doesn't have to mean showing your cleavage or showing your sexy is confident. And that's how I equate it. I wrote about it in a magazine recently. Sexy Moms Are Great Moms was the title of it. Sexy moms are confident moms, and that's all it equates to, whatever that means to you. So I guess that would be my final line would be, if you aren't feeling you're sexy, then find a way to get your sexy back.
I love it. That is a great way to end. And if you don't know how to do it, DM Penny on Instagram and she will tell you how.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Penny, for your time. This has been amazing. I am so excited to share your wisdom with the group and also to spread the word on HeyMama. So thank you so much for your time. And I hope you have a great day. And I will definitely be seeing you soon in the HeyMama environment. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Big kisses.
Bye, everybody. See you next week.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the House of JerMar Podcast, where wellness starts within. We appreciate you being a part of our community and hope you felt inspired and motivated by our guest. If you enjoyed this episode, please write us a review and share it with friends. Building our reach on YouTube and Apple Podcasts will help us get closer to our mission to empower 1 million women to live all in. You can also follow us on Instagram at House of JerMar and sign up to be a part of our monthly inspiration newsletter through our website, houseofjermar.com. If you or someone you know would be a good guest on the show, please reach out to us at podcast@houseofjermar.com. This has been a House of JerMar production with your host, Jean Collins. Thank you for joining our house.